Welcome back to another BJC past paper review. Today we're going to review a general science paper. This is a paper 2 from the year 2019. Again, before we start these examinations, please also remember to write your school number, your candidate number, your initials, and your surname. Now let's jump into the first question. Now the first question reads that the diagram shows the structure of a flower. All right, before we start answering the question, let's do a quick labeling. And so structure S is the anther. Structure R, that is the filament. And P is the sepal. L is the stigma. M is the style. N is the petal. And O is the ovary. Here we also have the stalk of the flower, which is called the peduncle. So let's label this as the peduncle. All right, and so there we have the different structures of the flower. But let's quickly label something right here. The anther and the filament, they make up the male part of the flower, which is called the stamen. Okay, so this is a stamen right here, and it is the male part of the flower, both anther and filament. Here we also have the female part of the flower, which is made up of 3 parts, which is the stigma, the style, and the ovary. And so let's give you the names of those parts. So there are 2 names given to the female part of the flower. It is called the carpel or the pistil. And again, this is the female part. All right, so great. And now let's go to the questions. And let's state the main function of the flower. And the main function of the flower is for reproduction. So this is the function is for reproduction. All right, great. It's to give the names of the following structures, which we already labeled. So L here is the stigma. So L is the stigma. N, let's go back to N, is the petal. So N is the petal. R, and R is the filament. And S, let's see what S is. S is the anther. All right, great. And I want to point out as well, whenever the exam say names, please put names. When they say use letter, for example, part C, it said write the letters of the parts which make up. And please remember, when it said letter, please write letters, not names. Okay, so be careful with that. So I said the female parts of the flower, and let's go back to them and see exactly what are those parts. And so there's L, M, and O. Okay, the stigma, style, ovary. So there's L, M, and O. All right, great. And I said the male part of the flower, and the male part again is the anther and the filament, and it is S and R. Okay. All right, great. Now part D is to give the name of part P and state its function. And so part P here, let's quickly look again. Part P is the sepal. And so the name of that part is the sepal. And then now it say the function of a sepal. So the function of a sepal is to protect the flower, especially when it is young. All right, so I say to protect let's say protect the young flower, okay, that will be sufficient to protect the young flower. All right, great. All right, so part E is that explain what takes place in flower when fertilization occurs. And so for fertilization to occur, this must take place here is that the sperm cells, so the sperm cells from the pollen fuse with the ovules, and the ovules are in the ovary, okay, in the ovary. All right, so great. So the sperm cells will come from the pollen and they will fuse with the ovules in the ovary. All right, so that's our first question. Let's go to our second question. And in this question, it said the diagram shows the table of elements. There are over 120 different kinds of elements. All right, and so we have the symbols here, and we have some Roman numeral numbers, which we're going to talk about, especially if they ask us. All right, and say, what is the name of the table shown above? And this table is called the periodic table. Or you can say the periodic table of elements. There's a periodic table or the periodic table of elements. All right. All right, great. Now for part B, it said what name is given to the rows shown in the table. So the rows, which mean going horizontally across, and these are called periods. The columns are called groups. Okay, so the columns, which are the vertical columns, they are called groups. Okay, so the rows, periods, the columns, groups. As the part C is on the diagram above, shade in the column for noble gases. So noble gases belong to group 8 or group 0, which is the last column on the chart. And so this will be our noble gas. So, okay, let's make a note of that. This is a noble gas. All right, so once you shade that in, then you'll be good. All right, so next question here is said, noble gases are said to be inert. What does this mean? And to be inert in simple mean that they are unreactive, or they do not react in chemical reaction or take part in chemical reaction. So they are unreactive. All right, so they do not take part in chemical reaction. I could simply say, or they do not react. All right, so they do not react. All right, so it said in part E, it said name the elements of the symbols listed in the table below. So the elements here, Mg is for magnesium, and F is for fluorine. All right, so great. And now for part F, it says how many atoms are in one molecule of glucose, and glucose is C6H12O6. And so there's a difference between atoms and elements. So in here you see 3 different elements, which is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But the number of atoms were represented by these numbers. So there are 6 carbon, okay? There are 12 hydrogen, and there are 6 oxygen. So what we're going to do now is add up all these. So we're going to add up all them. So it's going to be 6 plus 12, which is 18, plus 6 is 24. So this will be 24 atoms. All right, it said identify the 3 elements that make up a glucose molecule. So again, there are 3 elements and 24 atoms. So C is for carbon, and it said identify them. So I'm going to just put the symbol and the name. So C is for carbon. H is for hydrogen. And O is for oxygen. All right, so great. That's now our second question out of the way. Let's go to question number 3. And question number 3 said that Samuel builds a periscope out of empty milk cartons and mirrors. He said using his periscope, he is able to see objects on the other side of a fence that is taller than he is. Study the picture and answer the questions. So you could see Samuel right here looking beyond the wall or the fence. And this is a demonstration of what is happening inside of his periscope. All right, so first thing now, it said that which form of energy must be present for objects to be seen, and this here is light. So it's light energy. For part 2, it said what happens to this form of energy as it strikes the mirror, and once light hits any mirror, then it will what? Reflect. So the light will reflect. All right, so I can just say reflection taking place, or the light will reflect. The refraction taking place. All right, so I simply say the light reflects. So let's put that in bracket right here. The light will reflect. All right, great. Now let's go to the next part of the question. Now it said, if this form of energy passed through different mediums, what would happen? So if we're moving from one medium to another medium, and these medium must be different, then the light will refract. So refraction will take place. Okay, so refraction will take place. And so we can say that the light will bend, because remember, refraction is a bending of light. So the light will bend. All right, great. Now say explain how it is possible for Samuel to see the dog on the other side of the tall fence. So how is it possible for him to see the dog? And so I'm going to show you the demonstration right here, what is happening. So if you notice that the light from the dog will hit the mirror right here. So it goes in, and then from that point it will go down to the second mirror. All right, just to make these lines a little bit brighter. All right, and then into his eyes. So we're going to explain that concept that is happening on this diagram right here. So jump into it. So right here now we say the light from the dog. We're going to say the light, because remember now, light is coming from the dog as well, okay? So light rays from the dog, all right, enter the top mirror. So that's the top mirror. There's a mirror on the top. All right, so enter the top mirror, right, and reflect into the bottom mirror, or into the second mirror. All right, into the mirror at the bottom, and then into his eyes. All right, great. So it moves from the dog into the top mirror, then into the second mirror, then it will reflect into his eyes. All right, so the next part question is part B. It said here that name the 3 types of mirrors. And so you have what they call a plane mirror. You have a concave mirror. All right, so you have a concave mirror. And you also have a convex mirror. And just to make a note right here that concave and convex, they are curved mirrors. Okay, so we have curved mirrors and we have plane mirrors. For part C, it said the diagram shows 2 types of lenses. Name 1 instrument in which you can find lens A and lens B. And so lens A, just to give it a name right here, this is a concave lens. And the lens B, it is convex lens. Where you can find a concave lens, you may find them in telescope. You may also find them in binoculars. And for convex lens, you may find them in camera. You may also find them, well, both of them could be found in eyeglasses as well, especially your test glasses. And you also could find convex lens in magnifying glass as well. All right. So those are just two examples of each. All right, but you only asked for one. All right, that's another question down. Let's go to our fourth question. And this question is said the pictures show some animal and plant species found in the Bahamas. Some of these species are invasive. And so we have here, we have a casuarina, we have the West Indian flamingo, we have the spiny lobster, we have a lionfish, we have a sea grape tree, and we also have a green sea turtle. Now for part A, it said identify one producer organism from the picture. And producers are generally plants. So we have two plants right here. We have the casuarina tree and we have the sea grape tree. So you could put any one of those. All right, so sea grape tree. All right, and we also could put the casuarina. Not much organism eat casuarina, but it's a plant, so we could put that as well. So the casuarina plant is a producer as well. Again, not much organism will eat the casuarina. Now for part B, is a name one marine organisms, and one marine organism is any organism that you find in the ocean or in water. So the lionfish could be one, the green turtle, and the spiny lobster. Those are three marine organisms. So we could put here the lionfish. All right, we could put the lionfish. You could also put the spiny lobster as well. All right, and you also could put the green sea turtle. All right, we must put green turtle right here, that's for short. All right, great. So any of those will be a marine organism. For part C, it's a name one organism from a diagram that best fits each description. And so reptile. A reptile from this group will be the sea turtle, right? So the turtle is the only reptile shown. So here's a green sea turtle. All right, great. And a gymnosperm. A gymnosperm is a plant that bears cones. It's a non-flowering plant. There's no flower, but it bears cone. And so here we have the casuarina with the cones on them. All right, so you can see casuarina plant with some cones there. The sea grape is a flowering plant, so it will be angiosperm. So here now the casuarina. All right, so great. And now a crustacean. So let's go back to a crustacean right here. Go back to the diagram. The only crustacean that is shown right here is the spiny lobster. All right, I'm ready to fall under the bigger group phylum for arthropod. All right, it's a warm-blooded, and a warm-blooded organism can only be mammals and birds. And so the warm-blooded organism is a West Indian flamingo. It's the only bird shown. And remember, warm-blooded is only mammals and birds. So like us, we are warm-blooded, and all birds, chicken, pigeon, they are warm-blooded. So here is the West Indian flamingo. All right, great. A dicotyledon. And a dicotyledon is a plant that has a broad leaves with branching veins. And so the sea grape is our dicotyledon. Okay, so this will be your sea grape tree. All right, great. All right, so let's move on to the next part of the question here. The next part of the question, which is part D, is what does the term invasive mean? And so invasive, it means that organisms, let's put it carefully here, so the organisms entering a non-native, and I'm going to say non-native, which means it's not its natural environment or ecosystem. The non-native ecosystem. All right, let's put / habitat as well. And disrupting, so very important here, not just enter it, but also disrupting the natural balance, disrupting the natural balance of that ecosystem. All right, so that's how they become, that's why they term invasive, because they will go in that ecosystem and they will start to disturb the natural balancing of that ecosystem. So they can be excess competition for food. Matter of fact, they could be killing other organisms rapidly. All right, and so they could also destroy natural predators of other organisms, or they could cause food sources to be scarce. So there are a number of things could happen for invasive organisms. So right here said name which 2 organisms shown are invasive to the Bahamas. And so the invasive species will be the lionfish and the casuarina. Okay, so those 2, they are invasive to the Bahamas. They weren't here originally. So this is not their normal or natural environment. So the casuarina and also the lionfish. All right, so those 2 are the invasive species or organisms to the Bahamas. Let's go to our next question. And this question here, so the drawing shows some of the main organs of the female reproductive system. Study the drawing, then answer the questions. And so we have some labelings here. Again, let's quickly label. So here we have what they call a fallopian tube. And B will be the ovary. C is the uterus, otherwise called the womb. And D is the vagina. All right, great. Now, the question is to identify part B in the diagram, and part B in the diagram, let's go back to it real quick. It is the ovary, so part B is the ovary. All right, so name the cells produced by part B, and the cells produced by part B is ova. Ova is plural, ovum is singular, otherwise called eggs. Part 3 is said, in a normal healthy woman, how often does part B release a mature egg cell? And so how often an egg is released from the ovary? It is once per month. So once per month. Okay, great. Now the part B now said name the part where fertilization takes place, and fertilization takes place in part A. But please remember that they ask you for the names. So if you ask you for names, when they say names, please put name. All right, do not put letter when they say put name. Okay, so be careful with that. So here now it is fallopian tube. Okay. The fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. And part 2 of B asks, what is fertilized egg called? So fertilized eggs, they are called zygote. All right, so the fertilized egg is called a zygote. All right, so next question here now. It asks now, if a woman becomes pregnant, name the structure where the unborn child normally develops, and the unborn child will develop in the uterus. All right, great. It said during delivery, the baby passes first through the neck of the womb and then through the birth canal. And so it asks right here, give the correct names for the neck of the womb. And the neck of the womb here is called the cervix. I'm going to label it on the diagram for you right there. All right, and the birth canal is called the vagina. And so let me just quickly go back on the diagram and label the cervix. The cervix will be this point right here. So this is the neck of the womb, otherwise called the cervix. All right, so let's quickly label that for you. So just in case you'll need to label that on exam, you know where it is. All right, so great. All right, so part D now is to explain what happens during implantation. And implantation is when you can say, just start with the fertilized egg. Here, so when the fertilized egg travels to the uterus, okay, and attaches itself all right, so that's what implantation is. So when the fertilized egg travels to the uterus and attaches to the uterus, all right, and it will stay there for development. So the placenta will eventually form, and then after the placenta forms, then you'll have the umbilical cord, and then that development now will start taking place. You have the amniotic sac and then the amniotic fluid, and then the child will stay there and develop. So this is our 6th question, final question for the day. It said the pictures show examples of different types of simple machinery. Use the pictures to answer the questions. And so we have a wheelbarrow. And so the first question asks, what type of simple machine are the following? All right. And so before I go into the type of machines, all right, what I can do, I want to remind you about this thing, is that when you're classifying levers, you can use FLE, F-L-E, and FLE will base on what is in the middle of the lever. So based on what is in the middle. So if the fulcrum is in the middle, it is first class. If the load is in the middle, it is second class. And if the effort is in the middle, it is a third class. So this is the organization of what is in the middle, and it tells you what class lever it is. So just in case you need it. All right, and so let's see if we could identify FLE on these machinery. And so for example, the wheelbarrow, let's use red here. So for the wheelbarrow, the effort will be where the handle is. So that's the effort. Let's put it a little bit higher. So the effort will be here. The load will be placed in the wheelbarrow. So the load is in the middle. All right. And so the wheelbarrow, the fulcrum. So F is fulcrum. So the fulcrum will place in the wheel right there. That's where the turning will take place. All right. And so by nature of this, you know that the wheelbarrow is a second class lever. A slide, you will not have the fulcrum. You will not have fulcrum. You will not have effort necessarily. All right. And so right here, it is a inclined plane. Just to make a note of that. So this is an inclined plane. All right. A shovel. A shovel is kind of a unique type of machinery. The effort, the load, they are kind of unique, but I'm going to point it out for you right now. So the load is right here. So that's where the load will be placed. The effort is actually in the middle right here. All right, because this is where you actually will hold the shovel somewhere there to lift the shovel. The handle will be pretty much stationary, and you use another hand to kind of turn the shovel. So here will be our fulcrum. All right, a broom is similar to a shovel. The load is at the base right here. That's where you're going to sweep the stuff. You place one of your hand in the middle to move the broom, so that will be the effort. You kind of keep the tip of it kind of stationary, and that's where turning will take place. So that will be the fulcrum. And a screwdriver is a kind of again a unique type of machinery, because you turn the top part right here and the bottom part will also turn. And so what this is demonstrating here, because there's a piece in the middle that join both turning points, right, with typically the axle. So you can just simply say that this is a wheel and axle. Okay, so a screwdriver represents a wheel and axle. Okay, all right, so great. Now we have that, we can now jump in the question and start to answer the questions now. Answer the first question is, what type of simple machine are the following on a slide? As indicated there, it is an inclined plane. All right, the shovel, by nature, again, the effort is in the middle. So if the effort is in the middle, go back to a flea, it is a third class lever. All right, let's go to the next part right here now. And it's a broom. Again, the broom, the effort is in the middle. All right, in the middle of the load and the fulcrum. So this again is a third class lever. The screwdriver, as mentioned here, because it's turning at both ends, and the middle will serve as an axle. So this is a wheel and axle. All right, so great. Now part B of this question is that the doorknob and rod make up which type of simple machine? So again, you turn at one end, there's a rod in the middle of the doorknob, and so this will be another example of a wheel and axle. All right, so great. Now part C, it said which class of lever is the wheelbarrow, and let's go back to the wheelbarrow here. And so the wheelbarrow, the load is in the middle, and if the load is in the middle, then it is a what? Second class. Okay, second class. Remember FLE, second class. So the wheelbarrow here is a second class. All right. All right, so great. It's on the wheelbarrow, place the letter X on the fulcrum, and the fulcrum is where the turning will take place. And so the turning will take place at this exact point here. All right. And when I say turn, I'm not mean pushing the bar on the wheel, rotating. If you lift the bar up and down, there's a little joint right here that will cause the barrel to go up and down as a lever. So that is a lever right there. It is X is inside of the wheelbarrow, that little knob that is right there. All right, so great. All right, so next question is to name the two other parts of a lever. So beside the fulcrum, what other two parts we have? Remember FLE again. So again, it's going to be beside our fulcrum, it's going to be effort, and it's going to be a load. Okay. All right, and it's to explain why the inside of a tub is designed like an inclined plane, and simple is to allow the water to allow the water to run towards the drain or the drain hole, okay, to drain easily. Okay, so that drain hole, the water can run easily. So it's a slope that causes the water to run towards the drain hole easily. All right, and this is where we end for today with this paper. So again, have a safe one, do well on the examination. See you for another review.